Oh, it's happening.
Mhm.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from Hill House Publishing. My name is Crystal Hill, and I'm with Sadie today, who is one of the authors of Beyond Certainty, which you can see behind me here, has yesterday reached the ranks of #1 in 3 countries. And I think we are a total of, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 categories. So it's been beautiful. At one stage, we were number 33 in the entire Kindle store in Australia. So we really, really got in there. And so today it's just a conversation really about the themes of the book. We've done a lot of lives yesterday already. And if you haven't caught them, it's the first time I'm streaming into my beautiful Facebook group. Um, we're really here to help make a difference in the world by raising the vibration on the planet, by eradicating fear, by eradicating the traumas that we're holding in our body. And my mission really is to bring together those beautiful way showers, such as Sadie, who have really on that journey of walking that walk. They've walked their talk, they're on that journey, they embrace their shadow, and they're really here now to share their journeys that so that that can inspire and activate everybody who needs inspiration. And we all need inspiration at one stage or another. Even if we already feel like we're way down the track, we still, there's still things coming up, as I think we've talked about just yesterday, Sadie, didn't we, that the journey never ends.
Absolutely. Yes, it certainly doesn't.
So would you like to just briefly contextualize who you are and what your chapter is about?
Yes. Hi there. My name is Sadie. I am an energy healer, medicine woman, and founder of Healing Sacred Feminine. I support both women and men to really embrace a healthier sexual expression by looking at the unhealthy belief systems around our sexuality, around our bodies, and around our ways of being in the world that are really keeping us back and keeping us from having those healthy, inspiring, creative, passionate relationships that we're each longing for. My chapter is about talking about ego death. It was about my leaving my spiritual community and how challenging that was for me for a number of different reasons. But I was it was everything I thought that I wanted. And there was definitely a buildup of a spiritual ego there, which is something we talked about quite a bit in our community. But you kind of I don't want to say can't help but build one, but that's just what our ego does. It likes to pump itself up. So being in a spiritual community and having a teacher and living that life, just diving in so deeply, of course I had a bit of ego around that. And in the chapter I talk about really letting go of that and the process of doing that and how challenging it was for me because I had put so much into it, and I really thought that that's what my life was going to be. It was with community, and it was very fearful and hard to trust myself. That's really what the journey was all about in this chapter: is me learning to follow my heart, get out of the ego, get out of the head, and come back down into my heart and learn how to follow from that place instead of from an ego mental, this is what I want, this is what I think I need, this is what's been laid out before me, and this is it. So yeah, letting go of all that and coming back into my heart. And it was a really painful experience. So yeah.
And I think because these things can be so painful is one of the reasons why so many of us are resisting to move beyond the certainties of life, because we are, there's this saying about the ignorance is bliss. And that is, that ignorant life is in a way that life before the ego death, before we come into this awareness of, I have so much trauma inside of my body. Like, that was one of my massive realizations at one stage. On the outside, I had the perfect childhood, but then there came a point in my, Saturn return time, late 20s, early 30s, was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I had all this stuff. And then there was another one like 10, 12 years later. I was like, gee, I did not know how messed up I was, and it just bringing up the layers and layers and layers, not just from this lifetime, but also from the ancestors and from past lives. And I think yesterday in a conversation we were talking about, trauma is passed down 14 generations. So often it's not even ours. And then the amount of compassion that we need to and can foster and develop in order to, because nothing's our fault, right? Nothing's ever our fault, but that awareness. So maybe let's talk about that. The stages before the ego death, or what are some of the ways that helped you when you had that realization to move through these painful times, or to firstly actually allow yourself to embrace the pain that was there for you to face?
There's some big questions there.
Yeah, and I brought them all into one thing because I think there's stages, right? And maybe if we unpack the stages of it, really is the hero's journey, isn't it? Like the first, when we depart the known, what happens?
Yeah, and this is how my adventure into my spiritual community began. There was a specific teaching that was like a 4-day teaching, and it really, for the first time, I saw some parts of myself that I had never seen, some aspects of myself that I just couldn't. Once you see, you can't unsee it. Once you know, you can't go back. And yeah, that ignorance is bliss. I had just never been exposed to these types of teachings. I'd never looked at myself in this kind of way and had myself kind of picked apart, not by community or teacher, but just by these teachings. They really went deep, and I saw stuff in myself, how contrived and conditioned I was, and how so much of my ways of being had been very adopted from other places. They weren't me. They weren't and once that was picked apart, and then I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who to be anymore, because I had been, nothing was right anymore. And I once I could see through all of it, then I was just like, oh my gosh, who am I? What is there anymore? And once I let go, I couldn't go back. I couldn't keep doing the same things, and I didn't know what to do at that point. So that was the beginning of that journey with that spiritual community. So it started with a big ego death. And then this is interesting because I hadn't really thought about it, but what kind of came in its place was this new a new identity of community, of being an initiated student, of being on a spiritual path. And while that was a much healthier, it was very supportive and nourishing on many levels, of course, but just like anything, and I talk about this in my chapter, things that we can be very supportive for us in the beginning, we can end up depending on them too much, and they can become a crutch. So that's what I came to at the end of this. I realized that, yes, that structure was absolutely necessary. Just like when we're young children, we need the home, we need the structure, we need, to learn. But if we don't stay in there forever, eventually we have to move out beyond that. And that's the facing the uncertainty, right? The moving beyond that certainty of those confines. And that's what this was for me in my spiritual community, recognizing that I had formed a new ego around, after that death, and I had created another one. And then that
Just to interject here really quickly, do you think that ego equals identity?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, sure.
In many ways it does, doesn't it? Because it's something that we can hold on to, because we are these infinite beings, but we identify ourselves and find our place in the world through the roles that we give ourselves, the archetypes that we fit into. And then what you've just described, moving beyond those roles stops us from identifying with something external. And suddenly we're faced with this thing that is completely uncertain. Well, who am I if I'm part of the whole? Like, where is my place? What is my identity? And then suddenly it's like this real fine tuning, and it then becomes about our values. That's what I feel. Who am I? Well, I'm a being. I'm just an expression of the divine, and what defines me is, I guess, my values that I live by. I'm curious to hear your perspective on that.
Um, Yeah, that's interesting. I'm in this place where I'm just in this continuous letting go, and I'm picking apart absolutely everything right now, and going through, I think, a new ego death for myself, as I am creating this business and moving into that place. And I was really wrapped up in doing a lot of this business stuff and trying to get myself out there. And so it is all about, how do you niche down? How do you present yourself? How do you get known? So I've created this other thing, and that felt so suffocating. And it's like, this isn't actually me. This isn't me. I'm acting from, again, a place of fear that people aren't going to see me. They're not going to notice me. They're not going to understand what I'm doing. I'm not articulating well enough. My message isn't clear enough. Again, it was fear. That's really, so I'm in that place again where I'm like recognizing that I put on this outfit, this identity that wasn't, it's stifling and it's limiting and it's comparing myself to how everybody else is doing it. And so I'm having to, now I'm dismantling that, and I'm recognizing again everywhere that I'm acting from a place of fear. And when you say coming down to values, I'm kind of curious what you mean by values. What does that mean? I mean, I'm trying to come back down to a place of just, again, only moving from a place of love, and I don't know if that's values or if it's just, I mean, that's my value. I value love, and I value spreading love in the world, and only reflecting that to people and only sharing that with people, not coming from a place of fear. If anything I'm doing is motivated from not getting enough, not being seen, not being successful, that is not what I want to put out into the world. So I guess in that sense, that's my value, and I have to keep coming back to that. So it really is coming back into your values, and that fear-based way of being is not my value. So I'm having to, because it sneaks in. It is amazing. You think you're in your heart and you think you're moving from that place, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, hold on a minute. This isn't feeling right. Like, it happened again. Shoot. Okay. Scrap that.
I'm so with you on that one. I had one of those moments actually this very morning. I was like, oh, that's not me. That's just a strategy or something that some is working for somebody. But this is why I come back to my value is very much about integrity.
Yeah.
Must be integrity and authenticity. And authenticity to me simply means, well, alignment, right? Like these are kind of buzzwords, but what that means to me is that coming back to that feeling. Does it feel good? Do I feel content and at peace within my being when I do that? Or is there, the opposite of fear is fear. So it's another way of, love and fear, absolutely. And then there's like, love, joy, like all these incredible qualities. And I actually heard today there was a study done that authenticity, was it authenticity or integrity? One of the two. For me, they're almost interchangeable because when you're authentic to yourself, you're so aligned. Vibrates 4 times higher than love, which is crazy. Like it's almost like even more important when we're in that place of authenticity, but it is love. It is love too. Like love is almost like, what is love? It's that, it's like feeling good, right? Where we're coming from that place of compassion and caring and kindness and just being, feeling good within ourselves.
Yeah, and that unity and oneness,
Yes.
that's what I think of with the love. And so, yeah, authenticity and integrity is like absolute self-love, right? You're
If it
not,
doesn't feel good, it's not in alignment, right? It's about that divine yes and that hell no and hell yes and really trusting the body to feel that, and then that becomes our compass of life, not the external roles, and that then gives us an inner certainty that is independent of any external validation or
Mhm.
external need for certainty and safety, because we know that we've got ourselves. And as long as we have that and that self-love, then we're fine, right?
Yeah. Yes, 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 yes. That center, that core, that just like, yes, yeah, that foundation. So beautiful, so beautiful. Whew, love it.
Mm.
Hmm.
So let's like, we kind of went way big here. So maybe let's bring it back to the book title. It's Beyond Certainty: How to Navigate These Uncertain Times, this fear in the world that we are faced with every single day. That's kind of almost, no matter what, right? We're still living on this globe, and we just have to put up really strong boundaries, energetic boundaries, if we don't want to take that in or allow the external fear to activate and flush to the surface any fear that we're still holding in our being. And I guess that's really what it does, right? It's reflecting it back. If we're buying into it, then there's more work for us to do to release. So yeah, the stages of stepping into that place of love beyond the certainty, the external certainty, and finding that courage to embrace the unknown. Do you have any stages or any tips that you could share that really helped you? Because we started off by saying, when we shed those identities, it is very painful. How do you navigate through that pain to come out on the other side where it is so amazing and magical?
Yeah, I think having gone through it so many times now, it's gotten a lot easier. But it's, again, for me now, just recognizing when I'm in that stressed out, anxious, fearful feeling, and we know our bodies when or we know when our mind is stressed out. And if we can really just go into that and there's certain things that I was so freaking scared of doing, and I had created them so big in my mind that everything was going to fall apart. I was going to lose love. I was going to lose financial, resources. I was going to lose something if I did something, if I said something to somebody, if I came out about myself in some way, if I acted in alignment with my authenticity, I was going to lose something. And so I would stay keeping myself small and hidden for a long time. And then just getting to that point where that got so painful too. And I think a lot of us know that place. And then just finally finding the courage, like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to take a chance on myself, and coming out and saying whatever I needed to say or doing whatever I needed to do. And nothing happened. Like, oftentimes there was no repercussions. I built it up so much in my mind that just like, that and if something does fall apart, it's meant to fall apart, but we need to take those chances, because keeping ourselves small and keeping ourselves being in a certain way that isn't in alignment, that gets so much more painful than anything that's on the other side of that. And what we inevitably find is freedom on the other side of that. And that's when we start building that confidence, and we start trusting ourselves, and we start coming back down into our hearts, and we start trusting the universe, and we start recognizing, like, oh, that fear is not, it's not serving me, and having the courage. And it can be taking little baby steps, maybe having that conversation that you're scared of having with somebody, and then once you see how that turns out and it's not so bad, and maybe it's actually really positive, then you can take the next step. When you notice yourself being in that same kind of place again, you start, but you have to start, you have to start taking those steps and just like facing your fear. Like, yes, this is really scary. It's like when I first started doing podcasts or something like this, just like being on the screen and talking, that scared the crap out of me, and it's just like, but I really wanted to speak. I really wanted to share. And I wasn't going to get there until I started taking the chances. So I had to go through that each time, getting on and just being really freaking uncomfortable and shaking and just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. And at times having to say that, like, I don't have anything to say right now, and just feeling awkward and weird. But I kept pushing myself and I kept doing it. And now look at me. I can't shut up. Just like, I love talking and sharing. And I knew, because I'm called to it. So that's the other thing. When we listen to, if there's something we're called to, follow that, even when it's scary. Even when it's scary, start taking those little baby steps. Start moving outside your comfort zone, because that comfort zone is not comfortable. It really isn't. So I don't know if I answered the question. I think I got a couple of answers in there, but it's
Yeah,
roundabout.
you answered it in many different ways and in a really beautiful way. And there's so many golden nuggets in there. So one, there's two things. The first one that I'm reflecting back and really just want to hold on to is that we do more to avoid pain than we do to seek pleasure. And what you said is like when the pain in the comfort zone becomes stronger than that fear of the unknown, that's when we take action. But wouldn't it be so much easier if we could overcome our own internal conditioning of this fact and say, well, look, I'm just going to, but we must trick our mind then and make that what lies beyond the comfort zone, those goals that, you want to be a speaker, we make that stronger, so that not having that is more painful than staying small and staying in that comfort zone. And so I think that you shared that beautifully. I'm just putting it into slightly different words to really bring it home. And the other thing that you said is you just need to take the first step. And it reminded me of the quote by Albert Einstein. It's like the staircase. You just take the first step. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You don't even need to see where it goes, but just take one step at a time and get comfortable with the new altitude, so to speak. If we're thinking about a ladder, we're climbing up, and you just take the first step. You can't climb on Mount Everest in one day anyway, but you can know where you're going, and you just need to keep moving. And I think Les Brown, I was on a conference with him the last weekend, and he says that, what is it? You don't lose until you give up. There's no, you only lose when you give up. So as long as we keep moving, putting one step in front of the other towards our goals and our dreams that lie beyond the comfort zone, beyond the known, that's how it's done, right?
Yes, and this made me think of when I started. This is about death and ego death here today. So when I started getting involved with my schooling for death and dying, and I was working in hospice and working with grief, and just seeing what people had to say when they were at the end of their life, looking back, and their reflections on what they wish they would have done. And I just never, it was then where I don't want to have that in my life. I always want to, when I get to the end of my life and I look back, I don't want to have any regrets like that. I wonder what would have happened if, I don't want to do that. And oftentimes that I will go to that place. And when I'm trying to make a decision, like, yeah, this is how I'm going to live my life, I would always rather take a chance and see what happens than to not,
Yeah,
and
again, that's such a great compass, isn't it? Would I regret this decision on my deathbed? Yes or no? And then making that decision from that place rather than from the fearful ego mind. So yeah, beautiful. As we're wrapping up here, I'm curious, you've shared a lot about yourself. Are there any upcoming projects or programs or a free gift that you have? I know you have a free gift in the book, but is there anything else you'd like to share of how people can get closer into your world?
Yeah, right now I'm really excited about this 12-week program that I have that is all about talk about some ego death. It's a very deep dive transformational program where we kind of look at how we're engaging with everything in our world, what we're surrounding ourselves with, it's learning our energy body, because we are made of energy and our whole world is energy. And when we're operating at a lower vibration, we're attracting things that are of a low vibration. Then we're wondering, like, why can't I move beyond this certain pattern? Why do I keep repeating this? So it's really helping us to look at those patterns and understand how we're attracting things into our life, and then changing that frequency. And with a lot, it's body, mind, and spirit. It's a very holistic program, looking at everything, even looking at our nutrition. Like, if we're putting unhealthy food into our body, that's where we're vibing at, and that's what we're attracting in. So it's really some basics, but it's like a whole new way of living. It's a whole yeah, that's why I call it life transformation, because it really is. And I've seen people just do amazing things coming through this program, and really finding themselves, and finding their courage to let go of careers they've been trapped in for decades, let go, revamp their relationships, completely recharge them once they started seeing where they were um, uh, repeating some unhealthy patterns. And health is just totally changing after going through these programs. I mean, it's just amazing, the transformation that's happening for people, and just really starting to love themselves on just a whole new level. So very excited about that. And you can find that on my website. And yeah, so thank you for asking. Very exciting.
Beautiful. It sounds amazing. I don't think I have your website. Oh, yes, I do. There you go. There's your link tree. Link tree at Healing Sacred Feminine. So if people are interested, they can come there and get your details and find out more about the program. And
this
of course,
is for men and women. I just want to put that in there, because I was just working with women, but working with men now too. So just throwing that in
yeah,
there.
because everybody has that divine sacred feminine energy within them, and it needs to come into the men as well. Well as, just as the sacred masculine needs to come into the women.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you want to read our book and really, as we're sharing stories, as we're talking about these patterns, we are actually activating our unconscious. We are reprogramming our minds. So I highly encourage, if you're watching this, to reach out, buy the book. It's hillhousepublishing.com/buy book Beyond Certainty, to allow yourself to be inspired, to see what's possible. And I'm sure that will show you how far you have already come if you're listening to this. And if you're curious or interested in also sharing your story in a book and going through that whole transformational process, which we've kind of touched on, but we haven't really gone into, because this is like a whole confidence booster, isn't it? Suddenly embracing your story in a new way. Then there's always opportunities as well. Maybe you want to just share 1 or 2 sentences around that journey for you, of that, the personal transformation that happened for you through writing your book and now being an international best-selling author.
Yeah, I mean, it just started from day one. The chapter itself, writing what wanted to come through, was really surprising to me, because when I got on board with the topic Beyond Certainty, I had some other things in mind, but it was very clear what wanted to come through, and it came through just like it just was. And then the feedback was great, and just learning so much more about myself in writing that out. I saw the whole situation on some very different levels, and I learned a lot about myself, and it was very empowering and inspiring for me. And working with the other people throughout the process has just been really inspiring as well. So highly recommended, and it continues, like, being able to the feedback that we've been getting, hearing how it's sparking stuff for other people, and encouraging them to look at their own lives in a new way. Like, that's so fulfilling, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, to recognize, to having messages. I woke up to a message in the book saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much for creating this book, because that's exactly what I needed to read. Now I'm helped. Now I know what decisions to make." And so they can now reach out to people like you to really help them on that journey, if they want that support. And it's just, it's beautiful. It really is. it really is raising the vibration on the planet, both for you as way showers and coaches and healers, as well as then for the people you are touching and calling into your reality. So it just fulfills my heart so much and makes me feel so good, and so, in knowing that that is something that I'm kind of facilitating to happen.
Yeah.
And it nourishes me in knowing that, fulfilling my purpose to awaken and empower humanity with all of you, because it is now we're moving into realms of times of community and collaboration. So this really is the expression of that.
So much. Yay.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. And take one step at a time and follow